Hello and welcome back. I had to jump tracks real quick because I was really excited that I'm going to get to host one of the ladies that I just admire, and that is Ashley Shade. Ashley Shade is a transgender woman and an activist for the Liberty and Gender and Sexual Minorities communities. She is a candidate for LNC Region 8 alternate and a member of Outright Libertarians. Today, she is going to be talking about the importance of liberty for all people. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. I'm so glad I get to host you.
Yes, I'm very excited too. I just found out who was hosting with me, and I'm happy to see you there.
I am just excited to get to host you, and hopefully, I'll get to see you in Orlando, maybe.
Yes, I plan on being there as long as it's going to happen, so you'll definitely
Okay,
get your big hug then.
great, wonderful. All right. So, yeah, just tell us a little bit about what you want to talk about and the message you want to get out to people.
Yeah, so one of the main things that I do as an activist is education and having conversations with people. And it's really important to learn how to talk to different groups of people and talk to them in a language that they understand. If we're going to talk to them about liberty and try to convince them that liberty is the best way, then we need to talk to them in words that they understand, words that don't anger and upset them. And that changes based on the audience you're talking to. The things I want to talk about today is how important it is to be able to communicate with all different types of people and how we can achieve those goals of not only learning to communicate with those different types of people, but making sure that they're welcome and they know that they're welcome here in the Libertarian Party, that liberty is for everybody and not just a particular group of people.
Okay. Um, do you try to influence people within the Liberty community, or do you try to reach out outside of our Liberty community to bring more people in and share your personal story and message?
Yeah, so I will talk to anybody inside or outside the community. When I'm focusing inside the community, I try to educate them on why certain issues are important to people. For example, when I first joined the Libertarian Party, I had sent a message to our current chair, Nick, and I asked him, do transgender people have a home in the Libertarian Party? Are we welcome here? And he told me, absolutely yes, everybody is welcome. And so I asked him if he would put out a public statement saying that. And I told him if he did, I would immediately become a paying dues member and join the party. He did, so I did. And I've been a libertarian member ever since. I quickly got involved in different things in the party. I ended up getting a membership for my state party here in Massachusetts. And then shortly after, I became a volunteer on Larry Sharp's governor campaign, which is very close to here. And so I learned a lot working with that campaign. And from there, I've just been more involved in different groups than ever. I'm currently a part of 4 or 5 different campaigns at the moment, and I'm involved in other organizations, both within the party and outside of the party. So at this point, I just do a bunch of activism all the time, besides doing my day job. So for me, it's about interacting with different types of people, both in and outside the party, and making sure we're all on the same page, right? So I could try to bring in as many people from outside the party in different groups and explain to them, liberty is for everybody. But if they come in and they feel unwelcome, if they feel like people are attacking them for being who they are or being different, they're just going to run away. They're not going to stay. They're not going to want to be a part of that. So it's important that we learn to be better to each other all the way around.
So, talking about kind of the opposition, because I'm sure you anybody who is different doesn't matter like how they're different. Anybody who has seemed like not normal or average is going to find opposition. How do you combat that opposition with love?
Yeah. So, one of the important things to remember is that, for example, as libertarians, we are a minority group. We are marginalized by the majority. just like any other marginalized community, whether that be the GSM community, people of color, whether that be different religious communities, we are all marginalized communities. And libertarians have a habit of preaching about the individual first. And I completely agree that individual rights are very important, if not the most important. But what we fail to acknowledge is that individuals coming together gives them power. And the reason why people gather in groups is not because they want special treatment for the most part. For the most part, they gather in groups because that's how they change society and make things better for people with common issues. So when we talk about GSM rights, transgender rights, we're not looking for extra special privileges. I'm not saying that you should do anything for me because I'm transgender. What I am saying is that I want the same access to the free market that you have. And I should be able to participate in the market just like anybody else. And we should all have the same access to participate. And if we don't, that's a problem. That causes harm. And libertarians are about not hurting people and not taking their stuff. So,
Well, just so you know, you're getting a lot of love on social media right now.
thank you. Yeah. So when we preach that, we should be taking care of each other, when we preach that we don't hurt each other, you can do anything you want. We don't even have to agree, right? I don't agree with everybody in the party. I'm sure everybody doesn't agree with me. But if we can come to a mutual understanding of respect, and if we can say, yeah, I don't understand you, but that's cool, do what you got to do. And if people are hurting you or anybody else, as a group, we need to speak up and say something and say, hey, you shouldn't hurt that person because they're different. That's not okay. Everybody should have a chance to participate in the free market. Otherwise, we don't actually have a free market. And if that is our goal as a party, is to support the free market, everyone should have the same access. It doesn't matter what differences you are. If you're a human being, you belong here, period.
So while we're on the topic of opposition, you're going to find opposition in society anyway, and I'm sure you've dealt with that. You're going to get that more often. Do you receive a lot of opposition from other GSM groups for being libertarian?
Sometimes, but I've learned to talk to those groups and different people within them. So I am actually a member of a nonprofit board of directors called Berkshire Stonewall Community Coalition, which is where I live here in Massachusetts. We are Berkshire County's longest serving nonprofit that is out there. And I work with LGBTQ members of the community in a district. Our county is about 90 to 95% Democrat. We are one of the bluest counties in the country. And I'm able to work with people and get them to see my points because I listen to them first and I let them tell me what is going on, where do they feel the problems are. And by letting them talk first, it shows one, that I care about what they're saying, but two, it allows me to take a chance to take in what they're saying and show them a path towards liberty that makes things better. For example, when we talk about discrimination laws, when I talk to people on the left or people who, generally would disagree with libertarians, the way I present discrimination laws is this. They might be good right now. They could be. But depending on who's in office, they could be taken away just as quick. And when they get taken away, what happens is once these laws are put into place, we actually upset more people because now people are being told they have to do something. And then when the laws are taken away, they get really angry and they unleash something that's happened with the Trump administration. You've seen more and more discrimination than you have in the past because they feel emboldened, they feel enlightened because things are being taken away. So it doesn't matter so much to them. So really what the key is not just to have discrimination laws, which, temporarily could be a good thing or necessary sometimes, depending on circumstances. But what you need to do is talk to people. If you talk to someone who is afraid and doesn't understand and they don't like you, right? I have a better chance of reasoning with that person, educating that person, and at least getting them to leave me alone if I just have a conversation with them and try to educate them. than I do if I try to pass a law and force them to associate with me. The laws don't really work in that regard. So it's more important to change society, change culture, and educate people. And as we win more people over, as we show them, as we tell them our stories, as we get to interact with them and share who we are as people and that we are just humans too, and we're just like them in so many ways. Um, as we get to, share that and have those conversations, people become less frightened, you know, less afraid, less angry. And as they begin to maybe not understand, but, have compassion, as they begin to realize that you're a human being too, they become less and less opposition and they become more and more allies. And as we build up our allies and build up support, that is how we truly change society. We don't need to get to 100%. 100% of people are not going to like anyone ever. But what we can get to is 50%, 60%, 70%. And as people's hearts and minds change, as they become aware, they will, in tune, stand up for us and say, hey, that's not cool. You can't do that. And that's what we really need to do as a society. That's how we make real change. That's how we make permanent change. It's by winning people over. It's by educating people. It's by taking the time to talk to someone who might not agree. And if they're, being obnoxious and insulting you constantly, it's very difficult to have that conversation. And a lot of times you shouldn't. But if they're just saying, oh, well, I hate these people because of this, sometimes reaching out and having a conversation and explaining things or letting them ask questions helps. And with people becoming less ignorant, people becoming educated, they tend to, as they build relationships with people they normally wouldn't, as they learn more about people they normally wouldn't, usually changes their mind. And so that's what
Well,
I try to do.
well, on the topic of speaking with people,
Mm-hmm.
um, what what advice can you give, like like me, cis female,
Mm-hmm.
cisgender person who wants to help the GSM community? Because sometimes when a cisgender person comes in and wants to help, like because it's liberty for all, they kind of get blocked because they're like, you don't know what you're talking about and you can't represent us. So what can we do to help you, but not also like take over the narrative? Because this is your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are three things that I like to point out for allies. One is to stand up and show up. Okay, be there, show up, show that you support. Okay, stand up when you see someone doing something wrong. Say something. If someone's being a jerk, if someone's being an ass about something, stand up and say, "Hey, that's not cool. That's not okay." That's how you be an effective ally. The second is to listen. If you want to get involved, don't come in thinking you know the answers. Come in being willing to listen to people who have experienced it because their experiences are important to them. And it doesn't matter what kind of movement you're talking about, whether it's a GSM movement, whether it's other libertarians, whether it's people from other parties or people from other walks of lives. Their experiences have built up every worldview that they have. Their worldview comes from their experiences. And it's important to acknowledge that their experiences are real in that you care that they experience these things. And so the third thing is to ask questions. Be willing to ask them. If you want to be an ally, if you want to be better, don't be afraid to say, hey, some of this is really new to me and I don't know how this works. And I may mess up, but I need you to explain it to me. I'd like to be more educated. I'd like you to point out if I do something that might not be okay. I'd like you to please include me in those conversations and allow me to learn because that's how you can become a better ally. That's how I can become a better ally to whatever struggle you're going through. And I think these three things are so important when it comes to any community, whether we're reaching out to people of color and their experiences, whether we're reaching out to immigrants, whether we're reaching out to different religious groups, whether we're reaching out to other libertarians. It's important to be willing to listen and learn before we give advice.
Thank you for that, because I think that is something people tend to have in their subconscious. They want to get involved, they want to help, but we're seeing on the media and social media that people are getting shut down because, again, it's not our story to tell, and that is absolutely fine. Absolutely respect that story. But we still, yeah, we want to lift you up. We want to be supportive. Um, we got some live comments coming in. It's Jennifer Summerfield. She's absolutely in love with you. Such great advice. If any of y'all want to ask questions, feel free to type them in the comments. They're coming up, and I can click on one and answer, and she can answer that question for you. So I've got a few questions here. That's what I've been doing, is I've been writing down as you talk, because you're inspirational. So
Thank you.
Do you personally see more GSM people and LGBT people coming into the LP because of you and your message? Do you think you're a front runner, like you are like the leader in that message?
I don't know. I might be, I might not be. I don't look at it that way. The way I look at it is, I'm willing to talk to and have a conversation with anybody. I'm willing to sit down and tell them about different things that are happening. I'm willing to be that ambassador if it allows me to, but I don't look at specifically, how many people. The numbers don't matter so much to me as it does just building relationships with people. Most people I talk to, some of them are willing to come in, right? Some of them are not. But I might be able to have a conversation with somebody who will agree with me on a certain issue. And now I've won them over on that particular issue. Now, winning them over on that particular issue means we're a step closer to liberty, we're a step closer to freedom. So sometimes it's baby steps, sometimes it's particular segments, and sometimes you get them to jump all in. So I don't see myself as somebody who looks at particular, like, who did I bring in or how do I bring people in. It's more or less, let's bridge the gap, let's have the conversations. And I see myself as somebody that's able to have conversations with people, whether they're left leaning or right leaning or center. I have the ability to talk to them on their level and explain, where we are as a movement and how it can help them. Because I do see the liberty movement as a natural home for the LGBTQ community, for gender and sexual minorities, because we do promote the idea that you can be whoever you want. One thing that me and several other libertarians have been working on is, in addition to our platform plank for gender autonomy. And essentially, what it says is that individuals have the right to define their own gender, or whoever they are, essentially, and no other entity has the right to supersede that, which I think is a very libertarian message. And we've actually had opposition to that because people think it's special rights, but it's not. It's identifying that some groups of people are marginalized and affected more than others. And it's us acknowledging that, saying, yeah, you belong here too. It doesn't hurt our platform in any other way. It doesn't take away from anybody else. It just says that those individuals have every right to be who they are, no matter what. And nobody else can tell them, nobody else can define them. And I think that's really important. So that's something that we have passed through to the plank committee, the platform committee, and hopefully when we have a convention, it'll be something that gets voted on. So we're fairly excited about that. And it's a way to continue to move the party forward and show that we are leaders in these issues. We, as a party founded on the principle that gay marriage should be legalized, that the government doesn't have a right to discriminate against gay people. This is something that we've always believed in, and we should continue to believe in no matter what. And we should continue to leave. Not even Democrats have a platform like that, because they honestly don't care about people. They care about an issue when it gets them votes. But until it becomes popular, they don't give a crap about you or what you believe in.
So speaking of the left and the right, and I'm assuming because your area, you're going to have the opportunity to speak with a lot more Democrats or people who identify as leftist. What do those conversations look like? what does the conversation look like when you are talking to a Democrat or a Democrat voter, I should say, on how to intertwine your message and liberty together? Because most of the time they're stuck in their own paradigm that, you know, GSM and LGBTQ all need to be Democrats. So what are you doing? You're betraying us. What is that? What do you say to them? And yeah, what does that conversation look like?
Yeah, so it really depends on, the issue. Now, in general, when they ask, why would I be a libertarian? Why wouldn't I be a Democrat? That answer is simple. I don't trust the Democrats. The party is corrupt, and I will not join a corrupt party that I don't believe in. They don't share my values, and I can't support that, period. I believe in liberty. I believe that liberty and freedom is the ultimate form of love. When you can tell somebody you're free to make your own choices and live however you want, that is the ultimate form of saying, I love you and I trust you to be a good human being, right? So that is a message we can all get behind, that we can all share. When it comes to specific issues, it depends on the issue. So if I'm speaking, for example, to a liberal or a progressive or a Democrat about, say, the Second Amendment, about gun control, gun rights, when I word this to them, I tell them, as a GSM member, as a trans woman, there's a good chance for me, unfortunately, to be attacked or assaulted or even murdered because I'm transgender. And so I should have access without question to any tool that I feel is necessary to protect my life. And nobody should tell me that I shouldn't have access to whatever tool I deem necessary. When I bring it to words like that, they tend to understand better. And sometimes they'll even say, yeah, I agree with that. And I'll say, well, then are you in favor of gun control? And they say yes. And I'm like, how can you be in favor of gun control if you're trying to restrict my access to save my own life? That's not okay. That's exactly what that is.
Well, I
And
got to ask you, what's the typical reaction when, because that's got to be like
yeah,
deer in
sometimes,
headlights, right?
it's basically the deer in headlights, and it tends to, it doesn't fully change their minds, but it does make them think a little about the kind of restrictions that they're pushing for and how, that can actually hurt marginalized communities. If you look back in the past, gun control, gun laws are inherently racist. They developed after the Civil War to keep minorities from possessing weapons, to keep black slaves, former slaves, from being able to defend themselves, and they've only grown from there. So gun control really is not an issue about, certain people having guns. Gun control has always been about power. Gun control has always been about the people having weapons keeping the power. And so we should all have access to defend ourselves from anyone with power who thinks they're going to use those weapons to control us, whether that be the government, whether that be local authorities, or whether that be somebody who hates you for who you are. I want to be able to defend myself how I choose is best. And not everybody has to own a gun. I do recommend self defense training for all minorities or all people in general, especially women, especially LGBTQ people. Anybody who is a high target for being attacked, self defense is really important. But it's up to each individual to make the choice of how they want to defend themselves, what tools they should have available, and nobody else should be able to tell them that they shouldn't have access to whatever they feel is necessary to protect their own lives or their family.
Well, while we're on that subject, what is your tool of choice to stay safe?
um, so I do not like violence, and I consider myself a pretty safe person. Um, I do not currently own a firearm, but I do have all of the classes and necessary paperwork and stuff to get a firearm. I was actually planning on getting one before going to convention, but with COVID and situations, I wasn't able to do that. So I don't particularly own a firearm in my possession right now, but I also don't feel that I particularly need one at this time. My biggest tool for protecting myself is the fact that I'm still 6'2" and stronger than most people. I was a semi-professional football player. I played football for 10 years. So I am still a very big and strong woman, and I'm really not afraid of people. And in my community, gun violence isn't something that's really a big deal. Most people know who I am. And in my community, I feel safe. So here, I don't feel the need for it. Now, if I were to travel somewhere, I'd probably want to make sure that I had some sort of weapon. And everybody's weapon of choice should be dependent on that. You know, go to your local gun store, try out different weapons, make sure it feels good to you. Don't just pick something because it's cool or because somebody recommends it. Go in there, let it feel in your hands. When you're shooting, you got to feel comfortable. So if that's a weapon that you want to choose, you really have to take the time to really try these things and get it right. Because you want to make sure that you're comfortable so that way, if you are ever in that situation where you need to use that weapon, you don't hesitate in the moment. You're not thrown off by the weight of the gun. You're not thrown off by the mechanisms of it. You know how to use it and you're ready to protect yourself.
Well, I wanted to show you. This is like my favorite. Oh, here it is. My favorite button, and it's the one I got from it. It's the Outright Libertarians. The button, of course, it's got the flag and everything.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I love it. I identify as bisexual, so I am married to a man, but I am attracted to both male and female.
Okay.
But so because I want to talk about what you have more of those conversations to the left. What does the conversation look like when you're talking to a conservative?
So it depends on the issue. Again, when we're talking about gun rights, I mean, gun rights are pretty straightforward to most conservatives.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for LGBTQ, like with that particular discussion, that issue, what does that conversation look like?
So it depends on what segment because the right can look different depending on, you know, you have the economic right, you have the social conservative right, you have different religious groups, and different religions are more accepting than others. So the right, those conversations can be very different. But in general, what I try to explain or the conversations I have, the more difficult ones tend to be from the social conservatives who are religious and, you know, all I ask is, you know, do as God told you, and that is to not judge me. Just let me live my life. I don't care if you don't like me. You don't have to like what I believe in. You don't have to like me as a human being. You don't have to like me as a person. But don't interfere in my life. Don't judge me. Don't try to stop me from being who I am. You know, that's the message of God. God says to love everybody, right? It doesn't matter. Love thy neighbor, right? Judge, yes, ye be judged. You know, it's God's given right to judge me, not yours. Your job is to preach. And if you want to preach, fine. If I want to listen, I'll listen. If I don't, I don't. That's my right, and it's your right to preach. Just like it's my right to live my life how I choose and not tell you that you can't be religious, that you can't worship your God. It's the same thing. Just be who you are. Just let me be who I am. You know, I don't need you to tell me that, you know, what I'm doing is wrong. And if you want to tell me what I'm doing is wrong, fine. But don't try to use government force to tell me that I can't live my life. That's when we have problems. Do not try to force me to be like you. Just don't do it. You're going to lose.
So with having those conversations, one of the biggest stages LGBTQ and GSM people have is usually the pride parades and the pride events.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of those events and parades that have been canceled due to COVID-19. How has that affected the community from your standpoint? Because, you know, that community is it's tight knit,
Mm-hmm.
and it relies on itself for a lot of support. So, what does that look like with the current situation in COVID-19?
Yeah, so I am on the Berkshire Pride Planning Committee. So I am on a committee that helps plan the Pride events in my county. And I'm also a member of the policy team for the National Transgender Visibility March, which is an event that first happened last year, not during Pride, but it happened the first week of October. Um, and a lot of these events, you know, are not going to be happening. Pride Month is still in June, and we are still going to celebrate who we are. Pride Month is not about being proud to be gay, proud to be whatever. Pride Month is about celebrating the fact that most of us can walk down the street without being beaten or arrested. We are allowed to love who we want to love, to be who we want to be. Pride is about celebrating the progress we've made since the Stonewall riots, which historically were actually led by two Black trans women. Most people don't understand that. But the Stonewall riots were led by them. The Stonewall riots were a stand up against police brutality and government control, right? So if you think about the liberty movement, if you think about the home of where GSM people belong, it's here. The Stonewall riots and Pride were originally fights against oppression from the government, fights against police, the things that we as libertarians believe in. It's all there, right? So the connection is definitely there. A lot of Pride events are being moved digitally. We're throwing events, we're still communicating with each other as organizations. A lot of things are going to be planned for digital performances. So people, we are using technology to our advantage to stay connected. And thank God for the times we live in where we do have this technology so we can all stay connected. I'm very grateful for that. I don't know how they did it back in 1918 with the Spanish flu. One thing we've learned from pandemic is that we are all individuals, but human beings are meant to be together. We're not meant for isolation. We're meant to live and thrive amongst each other. We're meant to build connections and relationships. We are meant to live in a society together. And that's something that we need to embrace as a movement, as a culture. That, yeah, individuals are important, but so is community. So is being around people. So is embracing everyone. Uh, so Pride, again, is a celebration against all these terrible things that have happened to us. It's not just pride to be who we are, which is a little part of it, but it's also pride of where we used to be and where we are now. So a lot of people don't understand that piece of it when they get mad and they say, well, why don't straights have a parade? You know, straight people never had to worry about walking down the street and being murdered. Straight people didn't have to worry about being arrested for having sex with their wives or their husbands. Straight people don't have to worry about being assaulted for being straight. You know, that's the difference. That's where it all comes down to. So Pride is a celebration of, you know, where we used to be and where we are now. Pride Month is not going away. June is still Pride Month. We are still going to celebrate who we are. We're still going to be very loud and proud, whether we're on the streets or online. We are going to be who we are. We are going to celebrate and we are going to love each other. And that's the most important part. We are going to love.
So back to Pride and that community. Well, I just say Pride. I know it's an event and everything, but I mean, like that has been the public stage and the eye that people see.
Yeah.
And with the fights that LGBT has fought to gain access to insurance benefits, domestic partnership rights, marriage rights, all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that? Because my message, I'm going to be talking about marriage later in government, and I do pick up on that, but I want your point of view on that. You know, I find that that fight was so hard fought that when they got a little bit of concession, when LGBT got, you know, some concession to be able to receive a marriage license, they actually in what they ended up doing was actually shackling themselves to just one way of getting married. So, what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are this: the government should not have anything to do with marriage. Marriage is between two people who love each other, and you know, we don't need the government to be involved in that. When you get married legally, you have two partners: your partner and whatever government you live in, right? So you have to ask for permission to leave your partner. You have to ask for legal permission, spend thousands of dollars to leave your partner if things don't work out. Now,
did you hack my computer and read my?
domestic partnerships still exist, and you know, when it comes to benefits and rights, here's the thing: the government should never be allowed to discriminate. The government represents the people. We are the people. And whether we're all different or the same, we all have the same rights under government, under law. So the law should not protect certain people over others. The law should not enable certain people to have things and others not to. Everything should be equal. It's in the framework of our nation that all men are created equal. So whatever benefits are available to any individual, they should still be available to any individual, no matter how they get married or how their relationship is defined. Um, that's what free market access is, right? If we're going to have a truly free market, we don't restrict people based on who they are. We give the same access to everybody. Now, some people, it may be more difficult to get things, but they have the same access. They have the ability to do it. We should never restrict somebody for trying to do something within the market. So it shouldn't matter who you marry, whether you marry, what age your partner is, what gender your partner is, what race, religion. None of that should be a factor in determining whether they should receive benefits. None of that should be a factor in whether or not, that marriage should be considered illegal or not. Those definitions are antiquated, to be honest with you. I think marriage is a declaration before whatever you believe in. Two people don't need the government to get married. But if they want that, if they want to be government married, restrictions on those things should not be in existence. Everybody should have the same access. It should not matter what your partner is, what gender your partner is, what religion, what race. We should not restrict their access because their partner is different than what we think is normal. Normal is an antiquated word. It needs to go out the window. Nobody is normal. Nothing is normal. We are all different, and we should be celebrated for being different. That's what makes us human. We are human beings because we have different personalities. We all have different thoughts. We all have different experiences. But the one thing that we have in common is we all have a capacity to learn and a capacity to love. And I think if we do more of both of those things, the liberty movement will succeed and humanity will succeed.
Fantastic. So going back to that merit, of course, the topic we're talking about, would you, for somebody who is coming into the liberty movement from the LGBTQ and GSM community, would you advise against getting government married? Because I mean, that's just one thing that people just think that's just the way things are.
Yeah, I mean, I would explain to them that, if you get government married, here's all the things and problems that can happen with it. But ultimately, it's their choice.
Yes, but yeah, and the reason why I was asking was because they fought, that community has fought so hard to receive that it's kind of weird for somebody within their own community going, hey, you fought for this, it's been decades, you got it, but you shouldn't use it because you're actually helping them restrict you. So how does that conversation look?
It is true in some ways, but in some ways, the tax benefits outweigh the other problems you have, right? As long as taxes are existing. Taxes are terrible things. And
taxation is theft.
Taxation is government power and control, and it needs to go away. But, there are certain government benefits and things that you get for being married. Not all marriages are about love, unfortunately. Some marriages are arranged because of that thing, right? So, it all depends on the person's circumstance. But education is so important. Letting them know and informing them, hey, when you actually get married, the government can do this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and all these terrible things to you if you actually do it. Now, on the plus side, you get recognized for having a legal partner. Congratulations. But on the negative side, the government gets to shove whatever crap down your throat that they want to, and you just have to say, yes, please, may I have some more? So,
It's true.
the advantages and disadvantages are there, and it's up to each person to decide, what's right for them. But absolutely, it's so important to talk to people and educate them. And part of the liberty movement is, letting them know that, hey, the government is not all good. Most of us know that. Even most liberals and conservatives know the government is bad. They just believe that their bad is better than the other person's bad. It's still all bad.
It's that paradigm. Yeah, Robin was talking about, yesterday. It's that
Exactly.
paradigm. So, being a member of the LGBTQ community, I stumble on that Q every single time.
Yeah, so I like to use the term GSM or gender and sexual minorities for that reason. It's something that I came up with. I push it a lot within the different circles of the LGBTQ community. And a lot of my friends actually like the term better because it's fully inclusive and we don't have to keep saying all the letters of the alphabet.
Well, then I'm going to take your advice because you're a pro on that, and I'm going to start saying GSM.
That's right.
So with the GSM community, there's a lot of pushback from the majority of society, the normies, that we're just going to say, even though, there's no such thing, that community can end up being flamboyant and disruptive of what we know to be normal, what do you say to those people? Do you think that GSM people within the GSM community, do they need to tone it down, or do they just need to let them be them and they have to deal with their own consequences of their behavior? Do you understand where I'm kind of asking?
So, for me, the flamboyant stuff doesn't work. It's not who I am, so I don't do it. For some people, that's who they are. That's part of, their personality, and everybody should be able to live their lives how they want to. For those people who say sometimes the GSM community is too flamboyant, yeah, sometimes we are, but guess what? When you've been oppressing us for thousands of years, we're going to be loud and we're going to be proud. And sometimes we're going to do it just to piss you off because you're trying to use force to keep us from being who we are. So you want us to stop being flamboyant, allow us to live our lives and stop interfering. Stop trying to use force to stop us from loving who we want to love, being who we want to be, and doing what we want to do. As long as we're not hurting you or anybody else, leave us the fuck alone.
So, amen, sister. We've got a few minutes left, and there's a couple things I want you to touch on. One of them, it's basically advice. I'm going to be asking you to give advice to everybody watching and listening. So the first question I have is, what advice do you have for someone looking for a political home who feels, disengaged, but they are a member of the GSM community? What is your sales pitch for the Libertarian Party?
My sales pitch is this. Within the Libertarian Party, you're going to find lots of different people. Some of them are going to agree with you, and some of them are not. But the one thing we all agree on is that you have the right to be yourself, and that nobody else has the right to tell you not to be you. The government has no right to tell you that you can't be yourself. And so if you come and join the Liberty movement, you'll find that, again, liberty is the ultimate expression of being loved, being able to be who you are without someone telling you that you shouldn't be or can't be is the ultimate form of love. Okay? And we love you. So come home.
Fantastic. Yes, I want to give them all hugs right now. So the last thing, and this one's a personal one, but I know that getting personal is what's needed to kind of normalize this conversation. What do you say to somebody who might be watching or listening who's struggling with being their authentic self?
Yeah, so what I say is it's not easy. It took me years to learn to accept who I was. It took years of hiding, it took years of repression. it took a near-death experience for me to understand that I needed to make a change, that I needed to accept who I was and be authentic, or that I would not be on this earth any longer. Um, it came down to that for me. It became a life or death thing, and it does for many. Um, it's so important to know, and I'm speaking right now to anybody out there, whether they're GSM or not. If you're struggling with this, you're not alone. Okay, you are not alone. You are loved. You are important. You belong here. And if I can help in any way, reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you. Um, and I just want you all to know that as human beings, we are here for each other. And I understand how difficult it is to have people in your life who tell you no, that you shouldn't be who you are, that you should, that you're terrible, all those things. But you're not. You're amazing because you're here. And we love you. So come home, talk to us. You're not alone. Reach out anytime.
Oh, girl, I was gonna have to stop you because I'm gonna ruin my makeup. Oh, wow. You are such an inspiration, Ashley. I absolutely adore you. I follow you and love to see your smiling face and your optimism on social media. It brightens my day every single time I see your name pop up in my news feed. So we've got just a couple minutes here. Is there anything else that you want to share with everybody before we say goodbye for this segment?
Yeah, so since this is tit fast, one personal question I get asked a lot is if my breasts are real. The answer is yes, I've never had surgery, and breasts do grow. If you don't understand that, please ask any woman or most men over 40. They'll tell you how that happens.
That's wonderful. I
um,
love that.
but in all seriousness, again, the important thing is to remember that if we are going to build a movement, if we're going to get more people involved, if we truly want to see that goal of liberty and freedom in our lifetimes, we have to be open to all people. We have to be willing to listen to what people are telling us about their experiences. Because, yes, it's one thing to understand that things happen. It's a whole nother thing to live through it, to have experienced yourself. So the importance of being able to listen to different people is so important. Listen and ask questions. Make people feel welcome. And then you have an opportunity to build bridges, to build relationships, and bring people home. That is the best way that I feel we can bring people into the party and have it be a long lasting relationship. Because if people know that we care about them, that we truly do love them, that they have a home, that they belong here, they're not going to want to go. They're going to want to stay and they're going to feel happy. And, the pursuit of happiness is what it's all about, right? So life is not about being happy all the time, but life is about finding these perfect moments, right? So nothing is always perfect. Perfection, they say, doesn't exist. But I believe there are perfect moments. And sometimes they're a second, and sometimes they're a minute, and sometimes they're a whole day. But we have these perfect moments in our lives. And life is all about collecting as many of these perfect moments as possible. And that's what that's what helps build our memories. That's what our lives are all about, is finding those perfect moments and finding that happiness. Everybody, everybody, no matter who they are, should be allowed to do that, should be welcome to do that, should be encouraged to do that. And we should all be working with each other to help each other find that. So that is my message. That is what I believe in. And I hope I can convince you to believe in it too.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, the comments have just been nothing but love for Ashley. For real. Like, I'm going to read some of them. Amen, sister. Well said and cheers. She's a beautiful soul. Ashley is amazing. Yeah, and I cannot agree more. I'm smitten. You are a beautiful woman. And I have just been thrilled to have the opportunity to get to host you for Taxation is Theft Fest. So thank you so much for joining us and spreading your love, your optimism, your beauty, and your message with us. And again, thank you so much. Guys, that's Ashley Shade. Thank you so much for joining us today. Next up, we have Adam Kokesh. So y'all stick around, and we'll be right back after this. Thanks, Ashley.
Thank you.